Hello, and welcome to the Scott Mize Show, podcast focused on body and hormone optimization and improvement for anyone who's looking to get jacked, build muscle, lose fat, improve their hormones, feel better, or improve their health. Here, I interview experts in lab work, hormones, bodybuilding, coaches, bodybuilders, and everyday people and senior executives who have improved their hormones and improved their body. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Anything you hear should not be taken as medical advice. Please consult with your physician before making any changes to your diet, exercise, or supplementation protocols. This podcast is brought to you by Element Electrolytes. Element Lemonade is finally here. It's great for a hot summer day, workout, or just enjoying with a cold beverage at your desk. Check it out and get your free sample pack of their favorite flavors, along with any regular purchase when you use my custom link, which is drinklmnt.com/Scott Mize. The sample pack is great for anyone who's interested in trying their most popular flavors or anyone who wants to introduce a friend to Element. Go to drinklmnt.com/Scott Mize to claim this awesome deal. Now on to the show. Mauro Stara is the founder of Six Pack CEO and a peak performance strategist for time-pressed leaders. Drawing on his background in banking and a science-driven approach that starts with deep biomarker analysis, Mauro helps CEOs resolve hidden hormonal roadblocks, build cover model physiques, and unlock the energy they need to scale their companies without sacrificing health or family life. Welcome to the show, Mauro.
Thanks for having me on, Scott.
Yeah. So I'd love to just kind of start with your origin story. You left a lucrative banking career to coach executives on physiology and performance. What pivotal moment convinced you that your Wall Street skills could be redirected towards kind of helping humans instead of financial capital?
Yeah, so it's kind of two-folded, right? In 2015, I was at a seminar on career development with two friends, and they presented different career paths, and none was really appealing to me. Like deep down, I knew, hey, I want to have my own business, be in control of my own schedule. I don't want to have a boss. I don't want to take orders from anyone. So I didn't like the authority model. I wanted more autonomy, as many entrepreneurs do. But at that time, there was no like real business idea. It was more the desire and the drive in my mind. And then in about 2017, 2018, 2019 were those moments where I played around with some other businesses, was training people on the side already, so just in-person training, and juggling all of these things together aside from my banking career just got me to burn myself out, and I was having issues with my heart, so the heart muscle was getting inflamed. I walked into the cardiologist office, and there were a bunch of guys in their 70s there, and I was, in my early 20s, and I thought like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, the age gap is so big, I shouldn't be here in this office, right? And that was like the moment where I drew the line and said, okay, enough is enough. I don't want that anymore. I'm going to take a massive risk and quit my job at that time. And as I fixed it, I saw the opportunity to lead men similar to me. So I was already training, having people in person. But after that, I niched it down and focused on basically coaching former coworkers to some degree. So white collar guys, 40, 50 plus. Now it's a little bit more CEOs, entrepreneurs, but it's a very, very similar demographic, and that was what sparked and led to the change for me.
Very cool. How did you end up in investment banking if you knew you didn't want a boss?
Well, I was not in investment banking. I had two roles in banking. So first I was in electronic banking,
Oh, okay.
digital banking. We help clients open their mobile app accounts and just the digital side of things. And then during the last 18 plus months, I was in risk management, where we assessed, or I was responsible for assessing and creating strategies for non-financial risk, so more reputational risk. And if there's like a blackout moment where the company can operate, right? But I got into that in 2013, and back then I saw it as a huge opportunity for my career. But after a few years in, it was great. Like the money's good, the career options are good, but it was just not my idea of living the rest of my life working for someone else and having like that set schedule, 9 to 5. That was just not an option. And in 2015, I really saw that when those career paths were presented to me, and I was faced like, well, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. So I got to step outside of the box and create my own path in life.
Yeah. I can totally relate to that, having started my career in a similar field. And walk through the first 30 days you have with a new client. How do you translate things like blood panel data and whatever other data you intake into an actionable like executive operating system?
Yeah, so the way we start is we get like two big pieces of information. One is the blood work that you touched on, where we look at 97 markers, what's going on inside the body from oxygen, immune system, organs, micronutrients, metabolic health. And the other piece of information is we get in DEXA scans, lifestyle assessments. We have a biomechanic and posture assessment with the chiropractic docs. We get all that info together and then use the data, those assessments, and the blood work to create the custom plan for our clients that we then put into mobile app and lay it all out in detail for them. And that's like really the heavy lifting in the beginning. And then the first month, especially the first 30 days or 30 to 45 days, are very intense one-on-one work where we walk them through it and implement these systems. That's where most questions arise, and basically hold them through the hand, because sometimes, when you start something new, whether it's with fitness or business or really any area of your life, it can be like drinking from fire hose. So you want to make sure that the support is there at the highest level possible, right?
Yeah, totally. And talk about like the ROI of getting in shape. I guess skeptical CEOs often say, I don't need abs to run a company. They kind of view it as a form of vanity. How do you connect body composition changes to measurable business metrics or performance for people?
Yeah, that's a good point. And first of all, I would agree. You don't need abs to run a business, right? You don't need abs to be a good dad. You don't need abs to be a good husband. Like, you can be all of that and do all of that without having a six pack, even without being healthy. Let's take Warren Buffett, right? But does that mean you have to be fat? That is the question, right?
Yeah.
Does that mean that we have to strive for the opposite? And could the business, the family role model, the man as a better husband, as a fitter husband, could the abs or being in better shape, being better health, improve those areas? It goes without saying, right? So just because you can do something doesn't mean it's the most optimal way. And I think it's exactly what you said with the vanity, that a lot of people just think like, oh, a six pack is just about vanity. But we forget that a six pack is often what a healthy body looks from the outside if things are done correctly, right? So if you have abs and you're, eating a bunch of shit, then of course not, but it's really hard to eat a bunch of shit and have a six pack as well. So it's often what a healthy body looks from the outside, what a high performance body looks from the outside. But even more important, like what I've seen over and over and over again, guys come in, they make a certain amount of money, have a certain life that they're living, and then they get six pack lean, which puts them into the top 1% bracket physically from all men alive, right? And what then happens is that success spills over to every other area of their life. And they say, wow, I was able in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, whatever that timeline is, which it's a very short amount of time to get into the top 1%. Like, show me any other area of life where within a year, max 2 years, you can join the top 1%. It takes way longer to achieve that financially or in other areas, right? So now they see, wow, in this short amount of time, I was able to climb to the top by focusing myself and focusing what I can control. And they just set bigger goals. And because they set bigger goals and their drive, their ambitions are higher, it just multiplies what they're doing. I'm not saying it's for everyone. Some guys come in, they're 60 plus, they've achieved everything they want. Great. Maybe not for that guy, but you have a guy 35 to let's say 40, 45. They're kind of like at the peak of their career, getting to that peak, whether it's in business or corporate. And then they achieve that result and they just see like, okay, I can do way more in those areas. I can be a better father. I can be a better husband. I can be a better leader for my team. So I would say the big benefit is how it unlocks the mind that there's so much more possible in other areas where you've been making compromises, right? Because when you're comfortable, when you choose comfort over discipline, then you pick that not just with your body, but in other areas. And now once you shift that identity, it can be very, very powerful. I've seen it times and times and times again.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I see it too, definitely working with people. Talk about like hormone management versus hustle culture. So you can argue that testosterone, cortisol, and sleep matter more than grinding out 4 a.m., 5 a.m. workouts. What misconceptions do you have to get over when working with C-suite mentalities, I guess?
Are you saying like the argument of let me get up and grind versus work out and take care of myself?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it kind of goes into the previous one, right? The way I like to see it is business is the playbook, and you and I are the players. And if the player is optimized, you're more likely to win that playbook. So if the player, right, if you have two types of guys and they both want to add an extra $1 million to their bottom line, for example, and one guy is out of shape, poor sleep, eats fried foods, fast food all the time, stressed. And then you have the other guy who is in good shape, good sleep, good energy, takes care of himself. Given they have the same age, same starting income, same skill set, everything is the same, but that is the difference. Who will get there faster? The guy that takes 1 hour a day for himself to optimize his most important asset, which is his health, or the guy that says, I'm going to work that extra hour? Pretty obvious, right? Because Jeff Bezos said it perfectly. Once you get past a certain point, so actually, let me add some context. If someone is just starting out in business, and I'm not saying they should sacrifice their health, but if someone's just starting out, they're making like, let's say, less than 10 grand a month, and they want to build a company, they will have to grind and hustle a lot. It's not going to work to make a few decisions, and like you'll have to do everything. You wear all the hats. It's going to be brutal. But once you get past a certain point, then, and going back to Bezos, he said you have to make about 3 to 4 decisions a day that will move your company forward. And he tied that back to sleep and said that's why sleep is so important, because before he arrives to those meetings or is faced with those decisions, he wants to make sure that he's in the best spot possible mentally and physically and emotionally to make those decisions. And he said if he has poor sleep and doesn't feel great, then he'll compromise certain decisions. Or if there's a long meeting, what do you want to do when you're tired? You just want to end the meeting. And what do you do? Maybe you agree in a negotiation to something you should have not agreed. Or it's like, yeah, you guys can have that. Like, yeah, those 5% won't matter. And it will cost you millions down the road because those 5% right now don't matter, but you didn't think about it because you just were tired or you were hungry, you had a craving and you want to get out of that meeting. So it's those micro decisions every day that add up at a higher level that can really cost you long-term growth.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I feel like a zombie if I try to sacrifice sleep for anything. Talk about scaling personalization. As your client list gets larger, how are you thinking about productizing some of the biomarker insights without diluting your white glove experience that differentiates you as a coach?
So I have a team of 6 people, and everyone is trained in and has a specialist role in certain areas. So the scaling is not an issue there, but we never take on more clients that we can handle. I know a lot of companies, when they see a big wave of sales and a big growth phase, they just double down on it. And that often comes at the sacrifice of their current customers or new customers. And we've had many of those come to us where they work with other fitness companies and it's like, yeah, they just care about marketing and growth, but not about fulfillment and client success. For us, we're not looking to be the biggest. We don't compete like who's got the biggest bottom line, who's got the most amount of clients, but the metric we compete on, and I believe we're the best in the world at, is client success in terms of how many guys can come in percentage wise and how many will go out that have the result and see that result, right? And that is our focus, and it's the North Star in terms of our core values. So I'm all about growth, but the growth has to come with the same amount of quality. If we see quality drop, we cap it, we work on it, and when we feel ready, all right, we can take on more people, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. You're definitely maintaining the quality and upholding that first. You're also a family man. You're a husband and a father. How do you coach leaders to hit these aggressive body composition goals while also protecting relationships at home?
You mean for the guys who are dads?
Yeah.
Well, in the intake form, we look at their schedule and their personal life, their family life, and we hand them over certain documents, certain frameworks, because that needs to be communicated. There is going to be a lifestyle change. It's not just I'll have a few shakes and that's it. There is going to be a change, but we make sure we integrate it as much as we can. So if they go out and eat a lot, we adjust the plan to that. If, the wife cooks all the meals, we will adjust to that. If they have a lot of client meetings, business meetings, travels, vacation, we will always adjust to that. I believe like true success is when you can adjust the plan to someone's schedule and not the schedule to someone's plan, right? Or sorry, not the schedule to someone's program and fitting them in, but fitting the program, the framework into that person's life and integrating it. So yeah, some things have to go. You can't do what you've always been doing at 100% and expect to see different results. But some things have to go and change. But it's about finding that middle ground. And also, there are different levels of commitment, right? Some guys are ready to go all in at a certain pace, and others, they're not ready to go all in at a certain pace and will progress a little bit slower. And that is fine for them. So everyone has a different level of urgency in that regard as well.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And what, I guess, in terms of like talking about the level of change, like what do you see as kind of a baseline level of change when it comes to training and diet to get results for the average busy executive who comes to you? Like, how often do they need to train? How much? Just to give people an idea, because I think a lot of people have this perception that it's like all or nothing. You have to be in the gym 2 hours, 6 days a week, and you have to have absolutely perfect adherence to this super strict meal plan, way down to the gram. But I guess, like, what do you see as kind of not necessarily the minimum, but an effective dose to get the results people are looking for on average?
Yeah, we used to think that we need to spend all these hours at the gym to see results, but the reality is most client cases that you see on our website or on social, they're 3, maximum 4 days a week at the gym or even from home. And most workouts are going to be anywhere from like 30, 45 minutes, maybe 60 minutes if it's like a packed gym and the machines are like all over the place, but usually 45 minutes, 3 days a week, maybe a fourth day if someone wants to add in a fourth day or they're like very advanced and in a bulking phase. But that is really enough for that. So it's not how long you train, it's what you do during that session. And if that stimulates enough muscle growth, and you're able to progressively overload over a certain time span during those sessions.
Yeah. And what do you think are the most important factors to hypertrophy and gaining muscle? You mentioned progressive overload, but what are some of the critical pieces to getting results in training?
I mean, you have like 3 variables, right? You have intensity, your volume, and your frequency, and you can manipulate those in different ways, right? Some guys will like going to the gym 6 days a week for 2 hours. That means a lot of volume, a lot of frequency. Well, the intensity has to go down. You can't go, all sets to failure for 2 hours, 6 days a week. You'll tank your hormones and your recovery will suffer. But if you do 3 to 4 days a week, then the volume will be less, the frequency is medium, therefore the intensity has to be very high. So there's no like one path to the destination. There are different paths, and it depends what each person wants. And the guys that come to me, they don't want to be a gym rat or just live in the gym. They've got other shit to take care of. So they say, hey, you know what? I can commit to 3 days, maybe a fourth day, but I don't want to be there every single time. So we adjust that, and that's how the marketing and the message also was born based on that need, right? So I'm not saying the other methods don't work. This is like the method that's, in my opinion, the most efficient, and it's very effective in and out at a short pace. And also when you have kids a lot of stress from business, like there's a lot going on, maybe your sleep isn't the greatest, then your recovery is going to be key. And if you drag yourself from workout to workout, you need 5 pre-workouts to be able to hit the gym, there's the odds are high that your recovery is not optimized. So let's focus on recovery, and that means adjusting your training to that. And believe it or not, but a lot of people underestimate how little volume it takes to see growth. If you do quality sets, quality form at a higher intensity, it does not take that much. Now, I'm not going to say it's just one set and you're done. Of course not, but you don't need, 12 sets or 10 sets for chest in one workout, right?
Yeah.
You don't need that.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to diet, like, how do you like to start with people? What are the big rocks, and how do you get them moving towards the right set of goals and set of habits?
We personalize it based on labs, based on blood work. So every plan is custom, but some of the rules or more common things or like the overarching rule that we have for clients is, specific for diet, but also other habits, is whatever you're doing, it should not increase your appetite. Because when you're for a fat loss phase, when you're in a cut, the last thing you want is making yourself more hungry. And what I've seen is people will start their day with granola, with orange juices, croissants, and they may think like, hey, if I have the orange juice and a healthy sourdough bread and some I call it a side bowl or something, that's healthy, right? Yes, those are better choices than others, but the amount of carbs you have in there, it's going to spike your sugar, especially if you're insulin resistant. And now you feel great for like 30, 45 minutes, but when your sugar drops, then you're just going to start feeling tired, you have cravings, you want a snack, and now you're in a blood sugar roller coaster all day long. So typically what we do is start more with protein and fats. Let's say there can be eggs, steak, yogurt, whatever that is, and save most of the carbs for later in the day.
Yeah.
And this keeps their sugar stable. And then at night you have more carbs, which is also good. It's going to help you produce more serotonin, which will help you stay asleep, sleep better. So there's a win-win there to not create that aggressive hunger. But the worst thing, in my opinion, is when you're in a cut and you're just thinking about food all day long, you're hungry and you're snacking, and every 1-2 hours you want to eat, like, what can I eat? What can I eat? That's just a horrible place to be in, because eventually that willpower will run out. And when it runs out, what happens? You rebound, you binge, and you go back to day one. But if you can have a strategy that you're not hungry until about, like, let's say when you go to like 15, 12%, you need to go down to 10. Yeah, you're going to be hungry, but that's a short phase. But if you're 30% body fat and have to starve or be hungry till you go down to 10, you're probably not going to make it unless you've got a crazy amount of willpower and discipline. And if you have, then, those people usually already doing good and not, listening to diet advice in that regard, right? So yeah, just make sure that that is something you can do that you enjoy, and you're not depriving yourself and hungry all the time, right? Yeah. Otherwise, there's a leak in that strategy.
Yeah, I agree. It's just not sustainable. It doesn't matter how strong your willpower is. You can't do that infinitely. And then talk about looking ahead. What emerging diagnostics or wearables or AI tools do you think could be disruptive to the executive coaching space? And how are you thinking about integrating them?
Good question. I would say, there's the age-old saying of common knowledge is not common sense, and it's not what you know, but what you do. So what I mean by that is, if you go back to like the early 2000s, and then maybe 2005 or 8, when YouTube picked up, and today, even before, let's say 2 years back, before AI, there was a lot of info out there on how to get in shape. Like, you have every training program in the world.
Yeah.
You have every supplement, every nutrition protocol. So there's no shortage of knowledge. With AI, I believe you can personalize that knowledge and access it quicker and more custom. So the odds of your success will be higher. But I would argue the people who back then were able to use any random information in the internet and get results with that and have a plan, with AI, they will get even better results. These people are high discipline, very smart. They know how to filter, search, prompt the tools, right?
Yeah.
To give them what they need. But most people, they never acted on that information. So we don't have a shortage of information. Sure, we could say we have a shortage of good information, but with ChatGPT, Gemini, all the tools, yeah, you can find a better workout plan that's custom to you. But if you're not hitting the gym or when you're traveling, you fall off track, you still need someone holding accountable and calling you out on your bullshit, right? So I would say there's two pieces. One, you have faster access to infos as a customer, but also for people who are coaches like me, you have faster access to certain information that can help streamline tools, give better reporting and insights. But at the end of the day, it's about the implementation. You can have the best plan. If you don't implement it consistently, it's not a great plan. You can have a bad plan, but if that gets you to show up and do the work, you still see better results, right? So yeah, I don't think it's going to change that much. I'm happy to be proven wrong, but we always had information out there. Now it's just filtered and better. So is that what you were asking?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on. If information and knowledge was all we needed, everyone would have a six pack and be a millionaire. I think Tim
Yes.
Ferriss said that, but it's about the execution, about the habits, and about the guidance. So absolutely agree with that. Well, Mauro, this has been excellent. Great meeting you, getting to know you. I think what you're doing is so cool, and I think the audience will really appreciate this. What are some things you're looking forward to or want to share with the audience that you have coming up over the next 6 to 12 months?
Good question. As far as the business goes, I would say there's no like brand new, well, at least not right now, brand new thing that we're going to launch, just improving on the current system and refining those. But what I'm really looking forward to is that, you have certain places like maybe Dubai. I mean, you live in New York and Miami where you have like access to a lot of biohacks. So hyperbaric oxygen chamber and certain red light beds, peptides, and so on. What I really want is that becomes more accessible to more people across the country, but also across the world. And right now, there's like a big barrier in terms of investment and pricing for some people. And like if you go into the hyperbaric oxygen therapy, right, into that chamber, if you do it regularly, it's going to add up, right? And then you add in all the other stuff. So if we can make that accessible to more people, then the degree of health issues, health disease across the world, but also across the US, will just go down. Of course, the fundamentals are key. So, what we talked about today, diet and training and sleep and activity. But once that's nailed down, if you have like some more advanced tools that every person can use with a lower barrier of entry, I believe it's going to have a dramatic effect on humanity.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Where can folks follow you, Mauro, and keep up with what you're doing?
Yeah, so on social media, you can just type in my name on Instagram, mainly, also Facebook, and then you can also go to Six Pack CEO, so six packceo.com.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I'll have all that in the show notes, and thanks again for the time today.
Thank you so much for having me on, Scott.